Hello and welcome to the Too Much Apparently podcast. If you're new here, this is a podcast for the deeply feeling, overthinking, emotionally overloaded humans who've been told they're too much apparently. And if you're back, thanks for choosing to sit with us again.
We're Alice and Carly, two therapists who are also just sensitive weirdos trying to make sense of life, healing, and our own brains. This isn't a professional advice podcast. It's more like the messy, honest conversations that happen when you finally feel safe enough to say what you're really thinking.
This space is for people like us, the ones who've been called too sensitive, too serious, too emotional, too intense, and have spent way too long believing that it's true.
Okay, on with the episode.
Today we're talking about something we're both a bit too good at, pretending to be fine. You know that "I'm okay, honestly" voice you put on while your insides are quietly screaming. Yeah, that one.
This is for anyone who's ever smiled through the chaos, kept busy when no one would notice, or been called so strong when you were actually just holding it all together with duct tape and caffeine.
We want to get into why we do it, what it costs us, and whether there are gentler ways to be in the world that don't involve masking our pain with a big old "I'm fine."
So Alice, how are you doing today?
I don't even know if I want to answer that. I'm fine. I am fine. I am fine.
I'm also fine.
I feel like my brain's doing a deep dive on the question.
The question was supposed to be straightforward because we're talking about how we just say "I'm fine."
Right. Well, that makes me think about what's the purpose of the question?
The purpose of the question, how are you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what level the question is being pitched at. You know, is it that kind of social, just "how are you?" To which the response is "I'm okay, how are you?"
Well, in this country, it's used as a greeting, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sometimes people don't even say hello. They just say, "You're right."
Yeah. Which I didn't get that for years. I don't know if I've mentioned that already on the podcast, but I was easily into my 30s before I realised that when people say "how are you," they don't actually want to know how you are.
I know, it's just like, "You're right. Yeah, you. Yeah, cheers, mate." And then on you go. So it's a strange one how there are those times when people are asking you how you are, and there's times when people aren't really asking you how they are. They're just acknowledging your existence.
Yeah. Yeah. But then because you're asking me the question, I'm thinking, well, you want to know how I am, so I'll tell you how I am.
Do I? Do I?
I hope so.
Of course I do.
Yeah. And then I suppose there's different layers of how much I want to reveal and how much feels relevant. Because actually, as we're talking about this, Charlie Kirk was shot last night. So I'm kind of sat with a lot of discomfort about what that's going to mean, you know, how different political voices are going to respond to that. So actually how I'm feeling is quite unsettled this morning. And also I'm starting my master's degree at the weekend. So I'm quite nervous about that.
Oh, that's come around really quickly.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really excited, but I'm also quite nervous about that. So when I think about pretending to be fine, the first thing that came into my mind was needing to be fine, having to be fine because of the people around me weren't fine.
Okay.
So that kind of oldest daughter, you see that on social, I see that on social media quite a bit, that sort of eldest daughter kind of dynamic of being the one that holds everything together.
Yes. Yeah. That reminds me of the song I love from Encanto that so many people also loved and related to at the time.
Is that Louisa's song?
Yes.
Is that the one you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. That pressure like a drip, 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 and it never stops.
Yes.
Listen to your sister's older. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
But that became so popular because I think it resonated with so many people due to being the older sibling and feeling like the one that has to hold all that pressure. Be fine.
Yeah. So actually, when I think, I love Encanto, but I don't identify so much with Luisa. Actually, I think it's my younger sister who identifies more with Luisa. I feel like Luisa is emotionally suppressed, whereas that wasn't kind of how I was. I think I was much more, trying to grab another word that's not volatile. Well, but maybe I just need to own that actually it probably was quite volatile, that yeah, there would just be big explosions of emotions. And then I think as I got older, well, I left home at 16. So then I had to be fine because I was on my own and I had to prove that I was fine. That's how I saw it in my head. Is how, I kind of felt like other people are going to be expecting this to not work out. So I'm going to have to make it work out. So I'm going to have to prove that I'm fine. And I think actually that included pretending to myself that I was fine when I wasn't. I feel like there are multiple layers of feeling exposed with this question, which maybe that makes sense. Maybe that makes sense because what we're doing is really confronting the different ways that we pretend to be fine when we're not. So in order to come here and talk about it, yeah, I think what runs underneath the pretending to be fine for me is the idea that I'm too much for people. And is there another part to it? That I'm too much for people and that I'm incapable as well. I think there is a thread about being incapable as well.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. My reasons, I think, are the same as yours. The
Right.
idea of being a bit much
Mm-hmm.
in whatever shape or form that would take,
Yeah.
and not wanting to come across as incapable.
Yeah.
Or that you can't cope, or some sort of weakness.
Yeah. So even though we've got very different stories in our history, I'm thinking back to what you said on a previous episode about being a good girl. That isn't my story. But yeah, so even though we've got different stories, actually what lies underneath it for both of us is similar things.
Definitely. And I've just recalled that another part of it for me is also placing more importance on how somebody else is doing, and so modulating my response to keep them happy. So if I know somebody else isn't doing okay, or if they're upset or don't want to upset them further, then I will just say that.
Yeah. So I don't think I have that quite as strongly. I think again because of my history and perhaps this, this sort of fight part that I've talked about in the past that will advocate quite strongly. But there is very much a fear of how the other person will respond. So not wanting to anger people, not being met with other people's defensiveness is another one. Yeah.
To avoid invalidation, to avoid being dismissed.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there are so many different elements to it. I think historically, I would do the I'm fine thing all the time. So I think it's something that I would do a lot. If I know the person meets it as a greeting, so knowing particularly in Britain, I'm sure it's true in other countries and cultures, but definitely it's a British thing to use it as a greeting. And so now that when I know it's a greeting, I will just say an amalgamation of I'm fine or not too bad is another popular one that I will say. So that if I'm not doing that great, I'll say, oh, not too bad, because I'm kind of telling you a little bit of something. But if I know it's a greeting, I will just do what's expected. Historically, if people asked me, I would often not be truthful. Nowadays, if people are asking me and they are close friends or if they're family, I'm trying to be a bit more honest and give a bit more information. Not always, of course. Sometimes I'll still do the, oh yeah, all right, not too bad, da da da. But I am trying to be a bit more honest. And how honest I am, I guess I'll tailor that to whoever it is that I'm speaking to at the time.
Yeah. See, that sounds nice and neat. That felt like kind of like nice and sequential and contained.
It's just made me think, though, that is definitely true emotionally. But one area that I still struggle with quite a lot is, so I have quite a lot of chronic health conditions, and I'm terrible in relation to that, saying I'm fine. That's an area that I'm still not very good at. I have a recent example of that actually, where I was at a family wedding and everybody was sat outside around these fire pits, chatting, having conversation. There was wood-fired pizza that you could go and queue up for. And a lot of the chairs were taken at the time. And I was really struggling with pain, particularly in my back. And I was feeling a bit more fatigued because it was towards the end of the evening. And a chair became available. So I went down and sat on it and I had a pizza. And I thought, well, it's okay for me to take this chair because I've got food. So whoever's chair it was will be like, oh, well, she's got food. So it's understandable that she's seen the free chair. But there was a bag on it and I handed it to a relative and they said, oh, that's okay. That was so-and-so's chair. And I was just like, oh, okay. And I was thinking, well, if they come back, I'll just have to move and stand up and eat the pizza. But then I thought, oh, no, it was free and I'm eating this pizza. So I'll stay till I get the pizza. And then if she comes back, I'll stand up. But then I was thinking, I can't stand up. Like I need to be able to rest. But I didn't feel legitimate in staying there because when a lot of your disabilities are invisible,
Yeah.
nobody knows that I actually do need that chair. So it's just
Mm.
going to look like I'm just being a bit rude and selfish, like I've just pinched someone's chair and just don't even care and I'm just sitting in it. But then my dad's partner walked past me and I said, and I noticed there was another free chair on another table. And I just said, would you mind just bringing that other chair over so that I can stay here? Because I've got some pain going on and I've stolen someone's chair. So she was like, yeah, of course. So she went and got this other chair. And the next moment, my dad plunked down next to her and he said, how are you doing? And I went, yeah, I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, how are you? Yeah, it's a nice wedding, isn't it? And then my dad's partner plunked the chair down at the same time. She went, no, you're not. You just told me that you're struggling with pain and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, but I'm all right. And it's just so easy to just not turn around and say, oh, well, actually, I'm quite struggling. I'm a bit tired and I've got pain in my back at the moment. So I just need a bit of a rest. That you just go, can you just help me a moment? I'm struggling. Are you all right? Yeah, yeah, fine. How are you doing? It really highlighted it to me. It made me chuckle.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm wondering about, is that because you've had difficult experiences when you have been honest in the past? Or does it just feel automatic to do that?
I don't think I have had bad experiences in the past with pain. Not
Right.
I have had the kinds of experiences where you might say, oh, I feel a bit tired. Oh, well, yeah, we all get tired. So sometimes I have had those kinds of responses. But
Right.
then I think people don't really understand what it's like for me because I don't think I've told them. So
Right.
I don't necessarily hold that against people who have said that to me because I
Mm.
just don't think they can understand what it's like in my body. And I've not really shared. And even if I did share, I still don't think people would be able to comprehend what it's like to live in constant pain and what that's
Mm.
like. But I think what fuels it is yes, it's definitely automatic.
Mm.
And I think it's because I don't want to be in pain. I don't want to have to tell people I'm
Mm.
struggling, I'm in pain. I'm trying to work a lot on acceptance around my health conditions at the moment, which is
Mm.
quite a new concept because I still don't want to accept it. But I know now that I need to challenge that and I need to start
Mm.
working towards that. So I do think part of it is almost I don't want to acknowledge that I'm
Mm.
struggling, that I have these struggles. And so I'm just going to say that I'm fine.
Mm.
And at the same time, when you're tired a lot of the time, when you're in pain a lot of the time, if I was to say that every single time I was struggling, I'd just be saying it all day long. So again, there's almost a little bit like I don't want to have to keep saying that I'm struggling, I'm in pain. Almost if everyone could just know that at all times I have pain and I'm tired to varying degrees and just know that that's my baseline,
Mhm.
then just don't forget. And then you might know that I'm struggling in certain situations and then I don't have to keep saying it all the time.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Is there a response that you would want if you shared with someone that you were in pain? So if they said, "How are you?" and you said, "Actually, today I'm really struggling with fatigue and I'm in a lot of pain," what would you want them to say to you?
So, when it comes to my partner who I live with, of course, I do just answer honestly when I am struggling, and that's just part of everyday life.
Yeah.
When it comes to other people, there's times when I have told people because I've needed to. So, my dad and my dad's side of the family all have static caravans on the same static caravan park, and they have done for literally years and years and years. And so, recently, if I do go and have a bit of a long weekend with my dad at his caravan, I will sometimes say it because it's more that if I don't, then I'm going to end up doing all of these things and making it 10 times worse for myself. So I need people to know I'm
Right.
not sitting down because I'm being lazy or anything. I need to have a
Mm.
moment. And also when I've done the car journey, so if it's taken me 3.5, 4 hours, I'm gonna need time to recover on the other side. I'm not going to feel great. So I need people to know when I get there it's not,
Mm.
oh, well done, put your stuff down, let's go out for dinner. Like, no, 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 can't do that yet. Need to
Mm.
recover. So there's times when I'll say it because if I don't, the consequences to me could be quite a lot. Otherwise, otherwise I probably won't really say it. I'm trying to work on saying it more. And I also recognize that I still don't want to go on about it all the time because I don't want it to feel like it's dominating my life and every conversation. So I'm not really sure how to find that balance.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking what I'm thinking about there is about how do we manage when we have long-term issues whether they're physical or mental or emotional or whatever, when we have long-term issues, how do we respond to that question of how are you? And finding that
Yeah.
balance between being honest, but yeah, like you say, kind of being repeatedly confronted with your struggles when you're asked just a really simple question.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And why sometimes you do just want to say, yeah, everything's okay. But I just had a thought when you said how you want people to respond. And you know how I just said, I just like people to know that that's my baseline so I don't have to say it all the time. An
Mm.
example of that in practice is, was it last year? Oh my gosh, I can't even think of time. Last year, when I went on my friend's hen do, we took the train, and then as we were going up and down flights of stairs and train stations, etc., one of my friends just kept taking my bag and carrying it down the stairs and then giving it back to me to wheel. And I didn't ask for that or anything. She just intuitively just said, "Oh, I'll take that bag down the stairs for you," just knowing that I'd struggle, knowing that it would be heavy, knowing it might impact me. And
Mm.
no one's ever done that for me before, just do
Mm.
it. And it was
Mm-hmm.
both really nice and really uncomfortable because I was like,
Mm.
I wanted to say, "Oh no, I'm okay, I can do it," and
Mm-hmm.
to be like, "Oh no," I felt bad. I didn't want her to feel responsible for me. I didn't want to feel the classic burden of then her taking these two heavy cases down the stairs. But she kept saying, "No, it's fine because it will." I don't want it to impact you later or spoil the night for you, for example. So
Yeah.
it was both really nice and really like heartwarming that she just knew to do that and just did that for me. And yes, and the uncomfortable side, which I probably
Mm.
need to get better at so that I can actually allow people to do
Mm.
things for me
Yeah.
so that I can then enjoy myself better on these things. But I think when I'm saying I'd just like people to just know, that's perhaps an example of how I want them to respond. It's not necessarily what I want them to say back.
Mm-hmm.
It's just them holding me in mind and knowing that I might be finding certain things hard. That to me
Yeah.
is really meaningful and thoughtful and just nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it sounds so lovely for your friend to have done that. And also I kind of really hear the difficult feelings that that brought up for you, you know, the uncomfortable feelings that that brought up for you as well. And so where my mind went to there was that was the question of, is it okay to have needs? Or how do we get to feel okay about having needs? Because I suppose that's what well, if we're being honest, so if we're not pretending to be fine, we're being honest about how we really feel. I feel like this comes up a lot about, yeah, just about having needs and different ways that people respond to that, that some people can be so disconnected from their needs that they don't even know what they are. And that some
Yeah.
people might know what they are, but not be able to ask for them, or might have a sense of what they are, but feel like they shouldn't have those needs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The things behind it are firstly, is it okay to not be okay? Is
Hmm.
it okay to have needs? Is it okay to have needs that someone else ideally needs to meet for you?
Hmm.
And is it okay to ask for that and or accept that?
Hmm. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
There's a lot in there to work through and get comfortable with or figure out how to do, isn't there? Or each
There
one of those
is.
could be so multifaceted.
Yeah, and that it's not even it's not even like needs are just one thing. That actually there's all those layers, but there's also lots of then different sections of your life where you might feel more or less comfortable having needs in a certain area than in others. So
Mm.
I've said before about my needs being too much for people, and that actually I'm really comfortable with the idea that my needs are fine. And when I think about that, I think I'm mostly talking about emotional needs. But as I've been planning for my master's weekend this weekend, what's come up for me is my difficulty asking for more practical support,
Okay.
and things like that. Yeah. So we might be comfortable with asking for our needs to be met in some ways, in some areas of our life, but not in others.
Yeah. Whether it's
Mm.
emotional, physical, practical,
Hmm.
advocacy, and there's probably quite a long list. But
Yeah.
I spoke a bit about my history with it and where I feel I am now. And you've shared a little bit, but is there any more that you can tell us about your
My
relationship with
history.
that? Yeah.
I think a lasting message from my earlier life has been don't cause a fuss, which is confusing to me because I also did cause a fuss in lots of ways. Maybe that's not so confusing for me. Maybe it's more confusing when I look at it through other people's eyes, that I imagine other people would look at me and go, how has she got the message don't cause a fuss? Because she caused a lot of fuss.
Right, okay.
But I was constantly met with don't cause a fuss in different ways.
Well, if you weren't causing a fuss, you couldn't have been told, don't cause a fuss.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's been a lasting message. So recently I've been having lots of medical tests and things, and I'm really not happy with how my GP is handling various things. But I find it really hard to go in there and make a fuss. So there are some areas of my life where actually I'm fine to cause a fuss. Just thinking about my husband, he would be like, "Yeah, she's fine causing a fuss."
Get him up
But
here,
yeah,
get his
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. Yeah. But in other situations, maybe often with people that I perceive as being in authority, I find it a lot harder to make a fuss. And then, yeah, like I was saying before about feeling like I'm too much for people, which I guess is kind of bound up in the same don't cause a fuss, you're too much. But I did just want to mention that actually this has come up for me in therapy, me as the client, not as the therapist, that it has felt really scary for me. I've recently, just in the last couple of months, gone through another round of this with my therapist. Of, I think, having been invalidated or belittled or criticized in so many ways in the past, that it is really scary, even now, sometimes to say to my therapist, this is how it really is, because there's the risk that she might not get it, or she
Hmm.
might think that it's too much. And of course, it hasn't turned out like that. Like it hasn't with every other time that we've gone round this with my therapist before. But yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that because I think there can be a lot of shame in that. In going to therapy, the space where you're supposed to be able to say, actually, I'm not fine, and find yourself still not really saying how it all is, in case your
Yes.
therapist judges you as well.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to bring that in, just in case there's anybody listening who has also done that feeling of leaving the session and being like, oh, I didn't say it. I didn't say the thing. Yeah.
Definitely. And that's actually just a good example of how hard we find it to
Mm-hmm.
really be honest and say how we are actually. That even
Mm-hmm.
when there is a space that is literally designed for that, and we have paid for that, and we maybe even have a good, safe, trusting relationship with our therapist, that even then it can be still hard to
Mm-hmm.
speak our full truth.
Yeah, I think the stakes are higher for me in that situation because it's like, well, if my therapist doesn't get it and she gets everything, you know, then,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, what does that mean about me?
We do view
Yeah.
therapists as getting everything or like they
Yeah.
know all. So if a therapist was to offer a judgment or if they were to say, oh, well, that's not that bad or something invalidating or dismissive, I feel like, I mean, it's wrong, but I feel like we would take that as truth because their therapist said it.
Yeah. 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 There's a lot of power in that, isn't there?
Mm.
Whereas if somebody who I really need to find another term for emotionally immature because I really don't like it. It sits really uncomfortably for me. But if it was somebody who was quite emotionally immature, it'd be easier for me to be like, well, they just, they don't get about it. They don't get it. They don't think about it in that kind of way. But yeah, that could be really hard.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, we spoke a lot about this and how we might do it and why we might do it, but where has it actually come from?
My mind always goes first to parents. They have such a strong influence on us, and from such a young age that their way of being in the world. So if they've got a way of being in the world that is don't make a fuss, then that is going to impact us quite strongly. But I think it's also really important to look at wider, the kind of wider context. So one of the things that comes to mind for me is the way that if men have needs, or if men are not okay, they're seen as weak. That if women are not okay, they're often positioned as crazy. I just think there's a lot of dismissal, I think. And I'm going back to what you said a few episodes ago about wanting to keep calm and carry on in the bin.
Yes.
And actually, when we put that out on social media, part of me was anticipating some negative comments about, about wartime and about the need to keep calm and carry on in wartime. And even thinking about the way that that was also the case in the pandemic, kind of early in the pandemic, there's this kind of pulling together and being okay, and we'll get through this. And that there is that. In fact, I was reading a book in preparation for my master's starting that said that the prevalence of neurosis goes down in wartime.
Oh, okay.
Because there's bigger things to worry about, or the bigger threats. I was just kind of imagining somebody saying like, "Oh well, sometimes you need to keep calm and carry on." And there is truth to that, isn't it? If you're having a really bad day and you're in work, it's probably not appropriate to. Well, it certainly isn't for us, is it? As therapists, if we're having a bad day, we can't just go into our sessions. And if a client says, "How are you?" you can't go, "Oh well, let me just." That's not going to work, is it? So there is, and maybe this is the black and whiteness of it, isn't it? That you can be emotional without it, or, have need, whatever those needs are, without it taking over everything.
No, I do get what you're saying. I think there's a difference between cultural messaging, where you then feel like that's the message that applies to emotions in general, like keep calm and carry on, is that's how you should live your life, versus in specific moments that we just need to get through and survive, that we focus on the present and we do keep calm, we do carry on, we do push stuff to the side to get through that for a short period of time. And then we need to return back to it, reach out, speak to people. So I think it's when it's like the deeper cultural messaging that it then impacts on everybody as a collective in terms of then how we see and deal with emotions. So thinking about where it comes from, there's of course where it comes from for me personally. And then there is the where it comes from, those bigger, wider contexts. So I'll often bring that into therapy. It's always important that we consider the wider context. And if you are British, if you're living in Britain, then there are certain cultural norms and messages and conditioning that we are, of course, going to carry. And some of those I'll bring into therapy. But I also, for the episode, thought, oh, I wonder how far back this goes. And I just did a little bit of research, but I found it really interesting. So in the Victorian era, they valued self-restraint, control, and discipline. Then, as you mentioned, going into wartime Britain, that cemented the idea of we're all in it together, collective sacrifice, and that being a good thing, quietly enduring, do your bit, and keep up morale despite the fact that people are being bombed. So there was that messaging there. Then in relation to class, so particularly during like the Industrial Revolution and the working class, well, life was tough enough. So there's the sense that people didn't really value complaining about things because there was so much to complain about. Life was tough enough. No one's going to do anything about it anyway. So we just get on with it. And then also some religious aspect, depending on your religion. But in Protestant Christianity, it's emphasized that duty and suffering is noble, and can be a good thing. So if you think about going back in time, just from that little bit of research, the messaging goes quite far back, like it's quite deep rooted and has just continued, but been spoken about in different ways. And then there are, of course, other cultures in the world that are similar to us, but then there are others that are really different. The obvious one to me is, Americans in the States. And I have American family, and I have always really loved being around them because they will say things how they are, not in a rude way, just in an honest, heart on your sleeve kind of way. They will just speak about things the way that people just wouldn't say here. And I love that. And another thing going to the States, what I really enjoyed is they also do keep quite a positive attitude. And I'm not necessarily saying, oh, that's an amazing thing, but I don't know how other people would see this. But I feel like when you go into a shop here, there's like the store assistant that's like, can I help you? Like really just not looking like they want to be anywhere else. But going into shops in America, they're like, hi, can I help you? Oh, I hope you have a really great day. Yeah. And I come away thinking like, oh, they really meant that. They really meant that. They hope that I have a good day.
Yeah.
So I experienced the culture there very differently. And then it also makes me think of sort of Mediterranean and Latin type cultures where expression of emotion is more valued. People will more publicly cry, shout, or show strong emotions. And I know if you ever go on, on holiday to any of those countries and you listen to people speak, I often feel like people are arguing. Like there's lots of times where I'm like, oh, I feel like they're having an argument. Actually, they just speak like really passionately and quite loud and emotionally expressive.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of where it comes from, I think depending, of course, on the culture that you grow up in, that's going to have a massive impact on you. It also will have had a massive impact on your parents and their parents and their parents. So there's going to be that generational transition. And then, of course, how you are parented and the messages that you are given by your parent. And they're not always bad parenting examples. They're often just things that everyone will find themselves doing. And I'll often use this one with clients, but usually when people have a child and they really love and cherish and value them, the idea of them being hurt or upset can actually be a bit painful. Like to see your child really upset. Well, what you want to do is you want to fix that. You want to make them happy. You want to make it go away. So if your child is upset about something or they hurt themselves, what we'll do is we'll swoop in and try to take their hurt away. And whether that's through cuddle or shh, 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 don't cry, don't cry. Or would you like an ice cream? Would you like this toy? To distract, to move them away to something positive. And I think anyone who's a parent listening will know, yep, done that. Yep, done that. Yeah. If you love your child, it's going to hurt you to see them being hurt and you're going to want to make them better. But inadvertently, where we're telling people it's not okay to have these big feelings. It's not okay to just be sad. We need to swoop in. We need to fix that. We need to make it all okay again.
What I hear in that is a really positive take, really kind of focus on that inadvertent messaging like that. Yeah, shh, don't cry. And then what I hear is the gentleness behind it. And I think where my mind went to is the other end of that spectrum is I'll give you something to cry about. What's wrong with you? Stop crying. And that actually there can be a kind of, quite a wide spectrum. But I wonder so we've had keep calm and carry on. And wanting to put that in the bin. But I wonder what other phrases that we can think of that are almost just normal British phrases.
Bit like, like a bingo version of British cultural phrases or something.
What would be on your bingo sheet? Yeah.
So we've had keep calm and carry on, haven't we? Keep your chin up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Don't cry over spilt milk.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I forgot about that one. Well, it's not really a phrase, is it? But there's that stiff upper lip. Soldier on.
Yeah. Yeah. Just pull yourself together.
Don't air your dirty laundry in public.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Quite a few, isn't there?
Yeah. I feel like there's so many more.
Yeah.
Oh, there is one right on the tip of my brain. It is what it is.
Yeah. It is what it is. Yeah. And I don't necessarily know that this is a British thing, but another phrase I'd like to put in the bin is, well, there's always someone worse off than you.
Oh, the worst. The worst. What I always say to that is, if we follow that one down to its conclusion, only one person in the whole world gets to say how they're feeling.
I know, yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
If there's any phrases we've missed, please do let us know. We could keep a list going.
So I think we've touched on this a little bit, but what would you say is the hardest part about dropping the mask of I'm fine?
I feel like the hardest part is a lot of the things that we've already said related to fear of invalidation, dismissal, outright rejection, being told any of the phrases that we've literally just said, people misunderstanding us, not getting us. And the moment any of those things happen, this will be true for other people and it's what's true for me, but it really links to then like loneliness. Because then it's, oh, okay, I am alone with this thing. I think I think that makes it really hard to drop the mask. And then I think the other part of it is guilt. If we're placing other people's emotions as more important than ours, so we will feel guilty for this sense of burdening someone, particularly if that person is going through some things as well. So guilty for, as you said, daring to have needs or take up anybody's emotional time or space with those needs. And then, of course, shame for not wanting to have or feel like we should have those needs in the first place.
Yeah, the thing that came to mind for me is I think is that sense of there being something wrong with me, which I think kind of attaches to any all of those things that you've just said there. But I really think about the unintended consequences of all of those phrases and all of the different cultural messages that means that this is the current emotional climate in the UK, if you like, is that nobody really knows what's going on for other people, which gives the illusion that other people are okay.
Mm-hmm.
I notice this a lot in the people that I work with, but I also notice it for myself is I look around at other people and I think nobody else is struggling like this. And so then that the simplest conclusion to come to is that the problem is me rather than the problem is that we don't talk about how we're doing emotionally.
That's a really great point because of the era of digital and social media, because of that comparisonitis kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
because of what people project about themselves and their lives. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you ultimately end up with this idea and illusion that everybody else is fine or is doing well in life. And so then you can't talk about your things because you're then feeling inadequate or less than, or as you said, like there's something wrong with you, whereas we know other people are struggling too. People aren't showing it. And if people could just start to show it,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like people are starting to show some things more and more. So there are people on social media who talk very openly about their mental health and well-being and when they struggle, and even will post videos of themselves crying on social media. And again, it's like, oh wow, a human being human and actually showing that they're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
But because overall, I don't really think we're still very good at doing that.
Mm.
If people could start to do it more, it's going to create more and more permission for people to just be able to say, we're fine. And it makes me think of that phrase that is something like being kind because people are fighting battles that you don't know anything about. And the sentiment behind that, which is true. But I also just think, oh, but if people could just show us the battles that they're fighting, if we could see the battles that people were fighting, then we would just know.
Yeah, it is a tricky balance, isn't it? Because yes, there are people being more open, and I can only imagine what the comment sections are like on some of those posts.
Yeah, that's true. That's true,
And
actually.
when you're being so vulnerable, it's great to get the validation and other people relating to that. And well, I feel like we've had it with the positive feedback that we've had with this podcast, people saying that it's refreshing and things like that, much needed. And so that's positive. And we touch wood yet to get any negative comments. But yeah, it really stings if you put yourself out there and people then respond to it in a negative way. So I think there's just this balance, isn't there, which I suppose is a kind of constantly changing thing and yeah, different from person to person. But that need to balance being open and real and raw, but also needing to look after yourself because there are people out there that are just cruel, often because they haven't dealt with their own issues.
Yes.
I feel like there's a phrase that I can't quite remember, but it's just making me think about the idea that happy people don't go around saying horrible things to other people. They just don't. So all of those people that are making critical comments, on vulnerable posts like that, they're not happy people.
No,
It's
no.
just displacing difficult emotions for them.
Well, I think you've summarized well what makes it hard to drop the mask because
Mm,
it's that vulnerability
hmm
and actually is it even safe to?
Yeah, yeah. But then there is also high reward, isn't there?
Mm,
Because, I think another thing that I'll often come back to, I think less so now, but I think has been an ongoing theme throughout my life is nobody sees me, nobody gets me. But
mm-hmm.
actually, if I kind of turn that around and ask myself, the difficult question of, well, how much am I showing other people? This is something that was really helpful for me to learn when I was in my 20s, probably my early 20s, was don't wait for people to ask how you are. Don't do it like a test. Don't do it as a test to wait and see who cares.
Yes, we do that, don't we? Where we test people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, don't wait to see who cares. Tell people. Oh, it really rattles me when I see on social media like, oh, when you're going through hard times, you really find out who really values you or whatever. But I just feel like Mm, like my life is so busy, and the fact that I haven't been in touch doesn't mean that I don't care at all. We can do damage to ourselves by falling into those kind of thinking patterns, reinforcing that idea that people don't care about us when actually, probably way more people care about you than you actually think. Like, there's lots of people that I care about that I think would have no idea that I care about how they're doing because they're an acquaintance. But if they were going through something that was really hard, like I would really care about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I guess that phrase is, again, it's the danger of that binary black and white
Yeah.
thinking. And we don't have as much free time. Modern world is so rushed and is so busy that it's hard sometimes to create space, for ourselves, let alone to be thinking about how everybody in our life is doing, so that it can be really difficult.
Mm.
And yeah, doesn't necessarily mean that that's true.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, it is also really hard when other people aren't making the effort. If you're the friend that is always caring about other people, but when you're going through a hard time, nobody's getting in touch and asking how you are, that can be hard to bear
Definitely.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's always nuance to these things.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned before about the payoff of being able to do it, and how you were saying that you always wanted to know and be known, and ultimately the cost of continuing to mask our emotions and not be open and honest with people and not seek that support is, well, firstly, we're primed for emotional burnout essentially by holding it all together and holding it all on our own and keeping it all inside, and what we're doing with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I touched upon before how loneliness will then come into play when nobody really knows how much you're struggling and how hard it is. It means you are left on your own with it. And relationships, this connects us to the episode on small talk and what you need for deeper connection, that if we're not openly sharing what's actually going on in our lives and how we're doing, then it means our relationships are going to stay more surface level.
Yes.
So that
Yeah.
vulnerability just feels too risky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. What popped into my head when you were just talking then is about the possibility of change. That if we keep pretending that we're fine, nothing will ever really be any different.
So how
Yeah. I
can
suppose
we change? What ways forwards can we find?
yeah. Yeah.
I'd say it's not about now thinking, okay, I now just need to tell everyone and everyone exactly how I'm feeling and thinking and what's going on in
Yes.
my life. Perhaps we can strip it back to just starting somewhere and starting small.
Yeah. I really like that you've caught that it's not one or the other. It's not squash it all down or like reveal it all to everyone all the time. That actually there are, different positions that we can hold on that spectrum depending on what the situation is and what it is that we're struggling with and how ready we feel to talk about it. But maybe what I'd add to that is don't wait until you feel ready, because if this has been a long-term pattern, you might not feel ready. You might never get to a point where you feel comfortable sharing with somebody else, but that it's worth the risk.
I would say sitting down and thinking about who are the safest people in my
Yeah.
life, where if I'm being honest with myself, I feel like I'm likely to get a positive and supportive response.
Hmm.
And just testing it and starting with just those people, just
Yeah.
starting small, revealing a little bit more about yourself, and just use it as practice. So
Hmm.
often, as you say, if we're not used to doing it, we're not going to get comfortable, and then so that then we
Yeah.
can do it. I feel like that's something we'll probably say quite often when it comes to these things.
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
just have to practice, and we have to start somewhere, and we have to keep going.
Yeah. And I want to add almost the flip side to that, because when I was thinking about, how do we change this? How do we start? How do we do it differently? I feel like my starting point is often start small, find something easy. But I also just want to add that actually it's okay if you've left it really late and you're really struggling and you really need to be like, there's all of this everywhere. And what do I do? That's okay. You can also start there. I know I've felt a lot of shame in the past of like, oh, like I should have done something before now, so now I'm going to have to deal with this mess on my own. And I really just want to encourage people to not do that, or just to not have to feel like that, that actually these things happen and there'll be good reason why you haven't dealt with it before or said anything before. Maybe that's another thing actually that can go on that bingo list of why didn't you say anything before?
Yeah. Yeah.
That, you know, that we get into messy or difficult situations, and actually if we can meet that with curiosity and compassion instead of shame and criticism, it's going to be easier for us to deal with.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because there are those
Yeah.
times when actually we do just need to tell people, right, I need
Yeah.
to tell you that this is what's been going on.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wondered actually about how would you know that somebody is a safe person? Like for you, what would be signs that someone was a safe person or not to talk to about things?
That's a really good question, because I'm finding it hard to put into words.
Hmm.
There's an intuitive feeling and sense, I would
Mhm.
say, about a person. A lot of it, I think, comes from, our gut. It feels quite body based to me, that I
Mm.
feel that this person is a safe person. And in terms of practical things, times where you have said something in the past and you've got the response that you needed, or at least a response, even if it wasn't fully what you needed, at least a response that felt supportive.
Mm.
And also, if you've seen that person supporting somebody else, and
Yeah.
also how that person has spoken to you about people in their life that also have got problems and things going on. So, how they're talking about them and the
Yeah.
language within which they're using. Do they sound judgy? Do they sound compassionate? Do they sound caring? And what would you say?
I feel like you summed it up really well. I think maybe the bit that I'd add on is how they talk about themselves and their own experiences. So do they, when they're talking about their own difficulties, yeah, do they put themselves down, or, you know, say, or, you know, that it was silly or whatever? Or actually do they have this? And when you were saying about kind of that, you know, that intuition and that body base, I was trying to sort of think about, I wonder what it is that gives us that gut feeling, because there will be micro things that maybe we don't think about in our conscious mind. But when I think about the people that I look up to, they tend to be older women who have a really warm aura, who have a real warmth about them. So women that have a real warmth about them and that feel grounded. Now, this isn't always right, because I've definitely come across people who are warm and grounded, but then when you touch on a sensitivity, they become very sharp. But yeah.
So before, I was also going to add in about how people talk about themselves and their own problems. And then I just had a little voice that stopped myself, because then I also thought about how some people are terrible at holding compassion for themselves and their own issues, but are excellent at giving it to other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like there could, I think if someone talks about themselves in a compassionate, kind, understanding way, then obviously that's a bit of a green light. And also, if you hear people talk compassionately and understanding for other people, but not themselves, they still might be a safe person, in the sense that we're often quite good at giving it to others and rubbish at giving it back to ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. There's part of me that feels uncomfortable with that, because I know that I know that that is true. And also, I think there's part of me that's quite suspicious of it, that feels like actually, if you can't be compassionate with yourself, what what is going on in that dynamic where you can be compassionate with them?
Mhm.
I think that's a very kind of cautious part of me that's like, oh, watch out, watch out.
I can understand that. I guess I feel like that's. I think my take on that would be, clearly there are things that then that person needs to work on for themselves, but that doesn't mean that how they respond to me is going to be unsafe or unhelpful.
Yeah.
But there's something there that they need to be looking at for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think I would just find that quite confusing. I think for me, there is a real level of safety that comes with somebody being gentle with themselves. That if someone is not able to be compassionate to themselves, but they are able to be compassionate to me, I think that little voice that I was talking about is Yeah, it feels like such a strong word, but it feels like there's something disingenuous about it. It's like, oh, how can you sit there and say it's okay for me to feel this way, but if you were feeling this way, you'd be criticizing yourself for it.
Yes.
That is uncomfortable. And I hold that discomfort for myself because there are also times where I'm not compassionate to myself. Yeah, there's something.
Yeah, there's definitely times where I can be compassionate towards someone else where I wouldn't be for myself. That's where my own personal set of standards and messaging and conditioning comes up, that then is almost automatic in terms of then that comes up for me. But for other people, that's not getting influenced by my stuff. I can just see that through clear lenses. But when it comes to my stuff, I'm going to be looking at that through my colored lenses of my life experiences. And so I totally get why it would feel disingenuous. And yet I know in those situations I'm not being disingenuous.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm not comfortable with the word disingenuous. I'm aware as I'm sat talking about it that it feels like a hard line to take. And that, yeah, there is part of me that really is holding on to this idea that if someone is judging themselves, that hidden judgment could be dangerous for me.
I do really get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's okay to have that perspective. It feels for you how it feels.
Yeah. I feel like for me, it comes back to, have you done the work on yourself? So if I was looking for a new therapist, what I would want is somebody that's really done the work on themselves. And I suppose there's kind of conflicting sort of things there for me. One, that having done the work on yourself is really important if you're going to do this job. If you're going to be a therapist, I would say it's more important than the academic qualification, that it's really important. And then I suppose the other is that life happens and that people will go through different seasons, and that under stress we will revert to kind of old things. So somebody who has done a lot of work on themselves could find them back in a place where they're being critical to themselves. Yeah, I want to package it up nice and neatly, but I don't think it's possible to. I think it is just messy and complicated.
I think that's a good way to summarize probably a lot of the things that we speak about: messy and complicated.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and thinking, oh, that's me, you're definitely not alone. Pretending to be fine is such a human survival strategy, and it's not something to be ashamed of.
Maybe this week, just notice when that I'm fine autopilot kicks in. Not to change it, not to fix it, just to notice.
Next time, we're talking about being too angry to be nice. What happens when years of people pleasing and swallowing your feelings finally boil over? We'll get into why anger isn't actually the enemy.
So come back for that. And until then, maybe have a think about this. What would it feel like if you didn't have to be the strong one all the time? That's all from us today. If this episode made you feel a bit less alone, the best way to help us reach more people is to subscribe, rate the podcast, and follow Too Much Apparently on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Those simple clicks help other sensitive humans find us when they need it most. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back soon.